The season hasn't even started yet, and already the Rams are being disrespected? That's next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Travis Rogers. You can follow me under my name on Twitter at Travis Rogers. And of course, not only do I host your Locked On Rams podcast, but I am also the host of the Rams pregame show, their halftime show, and the postgame show on the flagship station ESPN 710 right here in Los Angeles. So thanks for making us a part of what you do here. And check that out if you get a chance. Of course, we will get it going on Thursday when the Rams open up against the Bills. Pregame show starting at 3 o'clock for that one. Of course, the Rams are going to drop the banner and everything that comes along with it. Okay, we'll get into a lot of things, but we're going to start with that opening game against the Bills. That's in just a little bit. Who is the most important player for this season in the Rams? The most irreplaceable player that's just around the corner, and the competition inside the NFC. Who are the Rams going to have to beat to get back to that Super Bowl? Instead of at SoFi this time, it'll, of course, be in Arizona. Don't forget that you're going to want to click that subscribe button so you get Locked On Rams in your feed every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, speaking of lines, let's get into that. The Rams are going to open up Thursday at home, SoFi Stadium. They're going to drop the banner at SoFi Stadium. And of course, that only means one thing, that you are the defending champs, which means, at the very worst, you had an unbelievably talented football team very, very recently, right? In this case, about 6 months ago in February. The Rams are bringing back a huge portion of that team, some key losses, which we'll discuss here in just a bit. But a team that a lot of people think is going to be very good, a team that's one of the favorites in the NFC, and a pretty good bet to get back to the Super Bowl again, as difficult as that has proven to be over the last 20 years or so. All of that being said, the people that set the lines, they are not buying it nearly as much as maybe fans might be, because here's what's happened to the Rams from when the schedule was released to where we are right now. When the schedule was initially released, the Rams were a half-point favorite going into this game. So basically a pick 'em, right? That whoever you think's going to win, go ahead and place your money. And unless you get a tie, you're going to pick the right side, right? If you pick Buffalo, they win, you win. You pick the Rams, they win, you win. You know, opposites, of course, are true as well. Only a tie would swing it to Buffalo's favor, because the Rams were a half-point favorite. And we all know that ties don't happen in the NFL particularly often. And that felt about right. These are two really good teams. These are teams with both, incredibly talented quarterbacks in Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen. These are teams with incredibly talented defensive players in Aaron Donald and Von Miller, in this case, former Ram. These are teams that I don't think anybody would be shocked to find out are in Arizona for the Super Bowl in about 5 months from right now. And if it were these two teams again, I don't think anybody would be stunned. But somebody has decided, the odds makers have decided that Buffalo got a lot better from the time that the schedule came out until where we are right now, or the opposite, that the Rams have gotten a lot worse, because the line has gone from the Rams being a half-point favorite to the Rams being a 2.5-point dog, right? So this is a significant change. The road team, Buffalo, is coming in to play the defending champion Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles in front of the entire NFL on the night they're going to drop the banner. And if the 3-point advantage is what we think it is, right, the 3-point advantage of the home team that is typically associated with that, they think that Buffalo is a touchdown better, or very close to a touchdown better, 6.5, just on a neutral side, right? That's what that would mean, theoretically at least. What am I missing? I know Andrew Whitworth is gone. I know Darius Williams is gone. I understand that. And Austin Corbett and Robert Woods, they've lost some important pieces. Pretty sure that Matthew Stafford's going to be there. I'm pretty sure that Cooper Kupp's going to be there. I remember them signing Bobby Wagner and Allen Robinson. I know that Jalen Ramsey is going to be there. I know that that all of the pieces that the Rams have are important. I know Sean McVay is going to be there. I'm not saying that they're guaranteed to win the game. I'm not saying that they're not going to, lose, or maybe even the Buffalo could cover. But what changed? And I'm not, again, I don't think Sean McVay is waking up in the morning, cracking his knuckles and looking at the Vegas lines and looking for motivational techniques. But this is, I think it's going to be a recurring theme for this team throughout the entire season, which is, hey, we won the Super Bowl last year, and they still don't think that we're as good as some of these other teams. They still think that we caught lightning in a bottle rather than we have a really good football team that can go out there and match up with anybody along the way. Sean McVay's had an entire offseason to scheme this game. I know that Buffalo has everything I'm about to say about this is true for the Buffalo Bills as well, with the exception of they're at home, with the exception of this is an opportunity to see that banner go up and get all fired up all over again. The last thing you want to do is have that thing come down and go out there and lay an egg. And Sean McVay is not that dude. He's going to have his guys ready to go. I hope that teams continue, not even teams, I shouldn't say it. I hope that the universe, right, whether it's odds makers, whether it is pundits, whether it is other players, that'd be great. But the Rams are good, but boom, 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 boom. Okay, how about just the Rams are good? How about just that the Rams have a chance to win these games every single week because they're probably better than the team that they're going to be lining up across. Buffalo, maybe one of the few teams that can look at the Rams and say, yeah, we're just as good. We have just as many good players. We are on the rise the same way that the Rams are. That's potentially true. But the more places that the Rams can mine disrespect, the more places that they can find, oh, you don't think so, huh? And turn that into motivation, turn that into, okay, I'll show you, the better. I can't wait for this thing to get started. I think it's going to be an unbelievable game on Thursday night at SoFi Stadium. And I think that the Rams are going to come out with you think that we caught we caught a few breaks along the way? Well, we might have, but we were also the best team, and we're getting ready to show you why all over again. Okay, coming up next, we're going to talk about some of those teams that they're going to have to get through in the NFC and why I think that path to a Super Bowl is a very, very feasible one along the way. That's next on Locked On Rams. But first, let's talk about our pals at BetOnline.net, your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so to become the Super Bowl champs, or I should say the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, this is going to be so stupid, but it's my favorite thing. You have to be in the Super Bowl again, right? Duh. I understand, but you can't be the defending Super Bowl champion if you don't win your half of the draw. You have to get back to the Super Bowl. And so the most important part of this is who else is good in the NFC. We've talked about the division, and we'll mention a couple of those teams right here, but let's look at the NFC as a whole, getting ready for the season to start here in just a little bit. Let's start with the teams that we know are going to be in this. The other two NFC teams, when you look at as far as the odds go to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, are Tampa and Tampa Bay and Green Bay, I should say, right? Tampa Bay, Tom Brady was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. The Rams had to kind of pull one out of there, you-know-what, to win in the divisional round in Tampa last year, the love of the game route, all of that stuff. Let's start right there. Tom Brady is still playing at a very high level. Tom Brady is still Tom Brady for the most part. We saw it up close with the Rams last year. He's 45. He's a 45-year-old man. I get it. He takes very good care of himself, and he doesn't eat strawberries or avocados or whatever it is that he doesn't like. And maybe that's the secret to living to be 1,000 years old. I don't know. But I do know that this is in unprecedented territory. that at some point, being 45 years old has to be something that is negative, right? Maybe that's this season. Maybe not. I do know that he missed some time in camp. I do know that it's not a matter, well, he's not going to know the playbook. It's none of that stuff, but it's just peculiar, right? Tom Brady is a guy that does the work. Tom Brady is a guy that shows up and does the things. And he didn't, or at least he didn't for the better part of a couple of weeks. Does that matter? I don't know. They got a new coach. Does that matter? I don't know. Does he have all of the weapons that he's going to need? Rob Gronkowski's not there. We're already seeing some injury situations. Maybe not. Their offensive line is missing a guy. Does that the point being, there's a lot of stuff around Tampa. And here's the best part about the Rams matching up directly with them. They beat Tampa. They beat Tom Brady in LA. They beat Tom Brady in Tampa. They beat Tom Brady in the regular season. They've beaten Tom Brady in the postseason. The Rams and Tampa is a good matchup for the Rams. The Rams have some bad matchups, San Francisco in particular, but this is not one of those matchups. Okay, so Tampa is a manageable problem. It's not an easy problem, but it's a manageable one. Let's go to Green Bay. The Rams have not had a ton of success against Green Bay. The Rams have looked vulnerable when they've played them. If the Rams have to go to Green Bay, which they're going to do late in the season, so we'll get a little bit of a litmus test against them before the postseason. But let's assume that it's in the postseason. It's going to be cold. This is a team that plays in Southern California, that plays inside, that plays on artificial turf, and all the things associated with that. They have Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. They have high expectations in Green Bay. Let me just run this through you real quick. And I know that this is not terribly scientific, but it's also true. Aaron Rodgers is 38 years old. Aaron Rodgers has been the best quarterback in the NFL, not named Tom Brady, and maybe including Tom Brady, for the better part of a decade plus, right? Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers have been to the Super Bowl once. The same amount of times that Jimmy Garoppolo has been, the same amount of times that Jared Goff has been, the same amount of times that Joe Flacco has been. This is my point. They find a way to not go to the Super Bowl. They find a way to underachieve. They find a way to say, oh, well, it didn't happen because this, that, and the other thing. They're a good team. Excuse me. They are a dangerous team. And of all the places you'd have to go, I think that's the place I'd rather go the least. They find a way to not win important games. And take whatever reason you want and apply it. This is not a team this is not the Pittsburgh Steelers who are there all the time. It's not the Baltimore Ravens who are there all the time. It's not the Los Angeles Rams who are there all the time. It's not a Tom Brady team that's there all the time. This is a team that, oddly, despite having the best quarterback in the league for the better part of 10 years, has been to the Super Bowl one time. And it's not where guys are pulling things out of thin air to beat them for no reason. It's them shooting themselves in the foot more often than not. So why wouldn't that happen again? I'm betting that it probably will. So those are the two main competitors, which means the Rams' path is, again, not easy, but certainly visible. Let's look at some of the other teams very quickly on who they may have to go through in the playoffs. San Francisco is not one of the best teams in San Francisco, or I should say in the NFC. That's the team that you want them to play the least, right? That's the team that they've beaten one time in the last 7 matchups. Now, they timed it really well in the NFC Championship game last year, but that's the matchup you look at and say, I don't know if I need a piece of that. That Kyle Shanahan is the one guy that seems to know how to make life very difficult for Sean McVay. Sean McVay has had unbelievable success, more or less against the entire league, other than Kyle Shanahan, other than the San Francisco 49ers. So never discount the Niners in what they do. And of course, if we're being honest, the Niner fans are going to fill up SoFi Stadium when they play those games, and that kind of neutralizes whatever advantage the Rams may have playing at home, even if it's a postseason game. So take that for what it's worth. The other teams in the NFC, who are we talking about that potentially could be in the playoff picture? Dallas. Are we done? Do we need to say anything else about them? I don't think that we do. When Dallas gets good, let me know. Last time Dallas was a factor, Troy Aikman was their quarterback, so I'm not too worried about Dallas. Minnesota, Kirk Cousins, let's move on, right? Again, they could win that division. They're a likely playoff team. The two other teams, I should say, that are kind of in there, but we really haven't seen it from them in recent history are Philadelphia, who was in the postseason last year, but were just completely run over by Philadelphia. Maybe they're a little better in year two with Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback, the second year of that coaching staff. That's one of those teams to keep your eye on as we get deeper and deeper into the season, Philadelphia. And then lastly, what about New Orleans? What does that look like in their second year? Jameis Winston throws a ton of interceptions. Jameis Winston also makes a bunch of plays. And if they can just get him on the right side of that equation, I'm not so sure if that isn't enough to make them one of those teams. It's like, especially if you have to go to their place, especially if you have to go into Louisiana. And I know the Rams have had some success there. NFC Championship game a couple of years ago, caught, as maybe a little bit of a break on that call, but that's not a place you want to go into. But again, we're talking Philadelphia, New Orleans, Dallas, Philadelphia. Those are not juggernaut teams. San Francisco, really scary for all the reasons we know. Tampa Bay and Green Bay, probably the two best other teams, but one team you match up really well against and another team that always finds a way to not be in the Super Bowl. Rams getting back there again is a very realistic possibility. Okay, coming up next, to make that possibility a reality, who is the most irreplaceable player on the Rams as we get closer to the start of the regular season? That's around the corner on Locked On Rams. Thanks again for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. My name is Travis Rogers. Don't forget to click that subscribe button in your podcast feed. Also, make sure you check us out on YouTube. Our Locked On Rams YouTube page is a great way to consume the pod as well. We've said this a lot. You have to get pretty lucky. I have to correct myself every time. It's not lucky. You have to be fortunate to go win a Super Bowl. You're going to have to get some things that just break your way. The gods, right? I'm a big believer in the sports gods, the people that hand out good luck, bad luck, and maybe get you a call here or there. Maybe you have a call go against you here and there. I believe in those things. And you got to get more of them than you miss. The Rams certainly did last year. They had a very good fortune in a lot of areas, but the area that I think that the Rams were most fortunate, knocking on wood that it happens again, was the injury gods. And not that they didn't have any. I mean, you saw Odell goes down in the Super Bowl, and you saw Matthew Stafford dealing with an elbow injury, or at least a reported elbow injury last season, and going through some things that Cam Akers missed a bunch of time. Nobody gets through it clean. Andrew Whitworth had some injuries last year, but they were not injuries to the most important guys at the most crucial moments of the season. So if you could prioritize who's the guy that if you could just put them in a glass case and guarantee that they're going to be ready to go 17 games during the regular season and the whole postseason, you can only pick one guy. Who do you put into that box? I think that the Rams have a couple of candidates. The Rams have two guys. You could maybe make a case for a third, but I don't think that he falls into this, and I'll explain in just a second. Who do you put in there? Cooper Kupp is the one that you might want to say, oh, you got to have Cooper Kupp. He led the league in touchdowns. He led the league in receptions. He led the league in receiving yards. You got to have Cooper Kupp. You'd love to have Cooper Kupp's on the list, but look, you have Allen Robinson. You're probably going to get OBJ back. You've got some other very good players. Even Van Jefferson, I think, is a very good NFL player. But you got Allen Robinson, who's a de facto number one, who in a really difficult situation could slide into that role and I think perform pretty well. So I don't think it's Cooper Kupp. It basically comes down to, is it Matthew Stafford or is it Aaron Donald? Those are the two guys. They're both irreplaceable, right? That if you have Aaron Donald, we've talked about it when he was in the incident with the Cincinnati Bengals, swinging the helmets around. Had that happened in a regular season game, he's missing time. He's probably missing the better part of 2 months. What does that do? Do you go 500 in those games? Do you go less than that? What does it do to your defense? And it's a real question. There is no substitute for Aaron Donald. There is no, hey, we will slide this guy into that spot and everything will look, it'll run at 85% of it. No. Aaron Donald's drawing a double team on every play. Oftentimes he's drawing a triple team. And even with a double and sometimes triple, he's finding ways to make plays. He's freeing up everybody else to be unbelievably effective because somebody's unblocked. Somebody's got a chance to make a play because his guy is going when making sure that Aaron Donald doesn't blow up the play. So he's unbelievably valuable. That being said, I don't think it's him. I think it's Matthew Stafford, because Stafford is involved in every single offensive play. Stafford, there is no workaround. If Aaron Donald let's just say that Aaron Donald missed the second half of the season. He's gone. He's not playing. And we saw what it looked like in Green Bay a couple of years ago when he tried to play with one arm, and the Rams couldn't stop anybody. They could not get off the field when they had to. Aaron Rodgers did his thing, and they beat the Rams because Aaron Donald wasn't there. However, you know what else was happening in that game? And even though he played pretty well, Jared Goff was the quarterback, which means they couldn't basically just say, okay, we know we're going to give up some points, but we're going to score a bunch too. Watch this. You want to go play for play, score for score, highlight for highlight. Let's roll. They couldn't do that with Jared Goff because he's going to throw it to the wrong guy at some point. He's going to take a bad sack at some point. He's going to do something Goffian, for lack of a better word, and you knew it was just a matter of time. Matthew Stafford, not necessarily. If you want to just go, touch, all right, let's give it a shot. I've got a chance to do that with no Aaron Donald. I don't have a chance to do that same thing. I can't all of a sudden play, Jeff Fisher football. I can't try to beat you, 12-9 without Matthew Stafford. I don't think that you can do that in the NFL right now. I don't think that formula exists anymore. The quarterback is obviously the most important player, but for the Rams especially, we've seen what this looks like with a competent quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and we've seen what it looks like when you're kind of crossing your fingers and hoping it doesn't come off the tracks with a guy like Jared Goff. I don't know what John Wolford would look like. I know it's not what Matthew Stafford looks like. I don't know what it would look like exactly with Bryce Perkins, but I know it wouldn't look like what it looks like with Matthew Stafford, and that's why he is the most irreplaceable player on that roster. We are getting close. Thursday night football, the Rams and the Bills. We are inside of a week away from that. How good does that sound? Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen, the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. It is almost football week. Until then, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.